I was at my grandmother's house, my great-grandmother's house, and I remember Baywatch being on TV, and there was a little skim clip in Baywatch. I remember seeing it and was just kind of like in awe, like I wanted to do that. I moved to Jacksonville, Florida to go to college, and I met a guy over there that had started building skimboards. His name was Anton Fluelling, and he owned Syndrome Skimboards. He hired me as an apprentice. I like to go full circle with things, and making my own boards, finding my waves, and riding them is the full circle to me. I want to go to the Olympics. You know, I want skimboarding to go to the Olympics. I want, yeah, like if I can be a part of that, that would be sweet. Don't let things get you down when you mess boards up, make a mistake, cut it wrong, mix the resin wrong. Learn what you did wrong and what not to do next time, and don't get hung up on that emotion. Move forward.
Hey everyone, my name is Trey Lee with Skim Steezy, and today we have a very special guest. His name is Aaron Astin, and he hails from Florida. And not only is he a professional skimboarder, which I think he actually competed in his last event not too long ago at Villano Beach, one of the pro-ams out there. But he also is the founder of Astin Skimboards. So without any further ado, let me just introduce Aaron Astin.
Hey,
how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you doing? It's great to be here. Love your vibe, man.
Thanks so much. Yeah, I remember we met, I think, at the 2022 OBX Skim Jam.
Yep.
And yeah, I really, wanted to have you on because you were one of the first people that I knew that was they're a shaper themselves, like you, and I think I met Joe Ward that
Yeah.
same day.
Yeah.
Yeah, just can't thank you enough for just being, just nice and just approachable, and then, also supporting too, because I think you ended up getting like a Skim Steezy shirt or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. We bought some.
yeah, awesome, man.
Yeah. I still got that
So,
one.
yeah, hopefully it didn't shrink too much on you.
Nah, that's great.
Yeah, sick, man. So, can you tell us a little bit about yourself in skimboarding and what drew you to the sport?
Yeah. So when I was younger, my parents fished a lot, and mainly surf fished. Being from the Gulf, it's flatter a lot of the time. So my dad didn't surf, but he was a fisherman. So we were always out at the beach, and I would get bored waiting on, fish. And I was a super active kid. I was always really drawn to just sports in general. And then one day, I was at my grandmother's house, my great-grandmother's house, and I remember Baywatch being on TV, and there was a little skim clip in Baywatch, and I remember seeing it and was just kind of like in awe, like I wanted to do that. That's something I could do while I was fishing with, my parents. Well, later that year, we went camping, a couple hours away from here in Panama City, towards Panama City. We were going scalloping, and I had saved money for that trip for the summer. I had $50, and we went in this store, and my mom was like, you've got $50 to spend, so, don't spend it all. And of course, I went in there, and there was a wooden sand blaster, and it was priced at $49.99. So that was my whole $50. And my mom was kind of like, really think about this. Is this what you want to, spend all your money on? And I was like, absolutely. Like, I knew right then, So I bought the board and started, just wooden board skimming from the age of 7 till I was 14 was when I rode my first carbon skimboard. I have a buddy named Ben Nelson who's from Clearwater Beach down by the Zap factory, and he had an old Zap comp, and he pulled it out of the truck of his car when he pulled up to my house one day. I was like, hey man, so you skim, you ever seen one of these? And I was just in awe, like, yeah. And I just started surfing at that time, and then we really started skimming. He showed me what wave riding was, and that's kind of where it, like, lit the fire. I lived on the Gulf, so I was always wave hungry, just starving for
Mm,
better waves.
right.
I didn't necessarily go towards the tech route like a lot of Gulf coasters do, because I surfed a lot too before I started wave riding on a skimboard. And yeah, so then I moved to Jacksonville, Florida to go to college, and I met a guy over there that had started building skimboards. His name was Anton Fluelling, and he owned Syndrome Skimboards. And he hired me as an apprentice, actually. So the first year that I learned how to make boards, I just basically volunteered my time. And he taught me a lot, and then finally asked me to, hire on and work for him. So there for about 5 years, maybe 6 years. We made a lot of boards. I was, the lead shaper, and yeah, it was incredible. That was where I really learned to appreciate making a board, feeling how it rode, every single aspect of it, even from the fiber, even the weave of the cloth of the glass. Like I could notice a
Wow.
difference in the different types of foam. So I got to experiment a lot with that, and that was, where I really got into the industry because I was already competitive, and yeah, that's really where the skimming started, all the way up until um, that kind of just died off, and Syndrome just kind of like closed down. I had broke my leg at the same time that Syndrome was kind of closing down, so it was really rough to not
Yeesh.
make boards and everything. So then I traveled a bunch for Skim, and went to Brazil, Costa Rica, Mexico, just a lot of places. I stayed a lot of time in Brazil, met a lot of incredible people down there, and then got to experience the world class waves that Sanunga had to offer. Um, yeah, I'm getting really far ahead of myself there, but that's
No, yeah.
that's kind of
No, no, yeah, thanks. Yeah.
that's where it all started and got to. Um,
That's so cool. Yeah. So definitely a lot of different questions off that, but one that sort of jumps out at me is the experimentation with the different boards. And you said you've written so many different boards, and you could tell even by like the weave of how it necessarily affects it. So when you are writing a board and you're experimenting with the different shapes, what kinds of things are you looking out for? Is it in, does it change depending on what kind of board or what kind of person the board is intended to be made for, right? So we have different kinds of boards. We have more like our trainer boards. We have more like professional boards, things like that, and even then
yeah.
professional like ones that are more floaty, things like that. So tell us a little bit about like what are you feeling for and for whom?
Yeah, so there's a lot in that. I've noticed that there's a lot of boards that I completely dislike, that I've made or ridden that other people have made because of the shape or outline. And then somebody who's my best friend, they can pick up the board and say, "Oh, I love this one." And then you can see them ride it, and they're not just saying that they like it. They ride it well also. So I noticed that it's not just like a one board is good for everybody or every condition. There is a general shape, in my opinion, that is kind of an all-around board. But yeah, it varies from person to person, definitely. Um, I love talking about boards with Joe Ward because he gets it. Me and him
Yeah.
can just, the last Outer Banks contest, we talked so much about boards. It was great. Um, but yeah, the feelings that I notice is where the rocker really starts in the front of the board, because that's kind of, that's when you're getting on the board. If you're gonna maintain your speed, you don't want your rocker to be too far back. It'll slow you down. Depending on the person, I guess. For me, it slows me down. I like to look at other riders when they're riding their boards. I like to see where they put their feet, because then if they want a custom board, I can kind of gauge how I want to build my rocker for their foot stance.
Right.
If that makes
And
sense.
yeah, something I learned was at least when I was learning under Timmy Gamboa, he was telling me that basically like my front foot should try to be behind the rocker,
Yep.
and not too far up. So I guess what you're saying is based off of like the width of your stance, you would sort of tailor the board
Yeah,
for that rider.
exactly. And like skimboards, they're like surfboards but different because of the rail shape and the bottom. Um, but if you think about the scale of a skimboard being smaller and adjusting all the tiny nuances that the board has, like you almost can't see some of them because of how small. You only have so much. You can't go too wide on a board or too
Mm,
narrow. So then there's these little nuances like that I noticed that an eighth of an inch, which is really small. Like I can notice a difference in a board's rocker by an eighth of an inch, quarter of an inch, and even where that adjustment is forward or back on the board. Um, Tail rocker's really fun to play with, even though it doesn't necessarily help us Gulf coasters because our waves are so small. Um, However, I have noticed on the Gulf Coast, some tail rocker helps me with getting more pop on like airs and technical
mm,
tricks. Um, However, they don't maintain the speed going out to the wave as well. But when we do get on a wave, that little extra rocker in the tail, I feel like it gives me more grab to just hold on to the wave instead of sliding out. Um, as far as like different materials go in the board, I like a really stiff board. I want it to not flex at all. Some people like a little flex in the board. Um, it just, you know, I encourage everybody to ride as many shapes and different glassing styles as possible. So just so you understand, and in all kinds of conditions too, because the way I like to skim, I like to have, I'm grateful. I like to have two or three boards while I'm skimming, and there's certain waves that I'll pick up this board for and ride, and then I'll switch over to a more narrow board. If I know the wave is about to, I can look at a wave and immediately swap and go, no, I want to use a different board for this wave within 3 seconds, and I'll pick it up and run
mm.
for a wave. But it's mainly because I've ridden so many different shapes and glassing techniques. You know, I
Right.
prefer a vacuum bagged board, the lighter, and it compresses the fibers. To me, it feels like if a person is using a wooden bat to hit baseballs and then swapping to a metal bat to hit baseballs. It's just it's got more pop in it. That's kind of the way I can describe it.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah, and so tell us about that board behind you there. So is that like in your quiver of boards, is that your kind of go-to?
Yeah, so right now I designed this one mainly for the Gulf in the East Coast, just for liners, and I actually found it wraps waves very well. I thought it was going to be better for liners and kind of planing, pumping, because I still try to wave ride on the Gulf, and a lot of the issue with catching waves is speed. So I want to have as much surface area, and I'm front foot dominant when I pump. So I want to have as much surface area up there on my front foot so I can just get a little farther. And it also helps me to maintain getting in the wave when there's no speed. It rides great for tech. I've done plenty of three shoves. It's not slow to me. I thought it would be a little bit slower for doing shove-its, but yeah, it's a forward wide point in the board. So most boards, their wide point is in the middle. And when I was designing it,
Mm,
I slid the wide point to the front part
I
of the
can see
board.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's more narrow on the
hmm
tail.
And
Yeah.
then it still tapers in like a normal round pin tail. And that's what really helped it for wraps also, because when I shaped boards at Syndrome, we only had one outline in 4 different sizes, maybe 5. So it was one shape, but small, medium, large, extra large. And I always wanted to just try different shapes, like my creative side, and we didn't do that there at that company. And yeah, so that was kind of like a driving force in design for me, was, only having one shape when I wanted to just try everything. So that's kind of how I am here. I also made this shape in a fish. So it's the same
Oh, sick.
outline, just has a fishtail on it, and I'm not a fishtail guy, but it rides great. So,
Hmm.
you know,
And so, this kind of need for experimentation kind of led you to start your own company, Astin Skimboards. So that kind of leads me to my next question. So, what were the motivating factors behind your starting Astin Skimboards?
yeah. So I've just always been a part of skimming in my life, and always would think to myself, after Syndrome closed down, I always still wanted to build boards. Like I had a period of years where I didn't skim as much. Basically, didn't really skim hardly at all. I stopped competing. Um, Probably about 6, 7 years, somewhere in there. I'd still skim, but not like I do now. And when Syndrome closed, I kind of felt that disconnection. Like I wasn't skimming because I wasn't making my own boards and skimming. So that's kind of like, it was just I like to go full circle with things, and making my own boards, finding my waves, and riding them is the full circle to me. So I started skimming again, and yeah, just I have an old horse barn that we used to have horses, and I turned the two horse stalls. I turned one into a shaping room and one into my glassing room, and just decked it out for building skimboards, and you know slowly building the company to what I can. I love giving back to the kids, and especially building a board. And if they come by the shop and pick it up, I'll leave it on the rack for them and be like, yeah, grab it off the rack, man. And they'll be like, holy cow, like I can grab it off the rack. It's like, yeah, you know. So I try to like
That's what
create
it's
that
all about, man.
experience for them. And then at contests too, uh, there's a really cool kid I met in North Carolina named Jax White, and I met him last year right before I met you, and he was just skimming. He wasn't like thinking about competing, and I'd got there early. The waves were firing, and we just clicked. The next thing you know, he's like, "Hey, I'm gonna enter the skim contest," and he entered it, and then now he's done several contests, and we keep up, and it's just cool to watch him go from just kind of skimming, having fun, to he's competed at like 4 or 5 events. He's a cool kid. He's a cool kid.
It's awesome, man. Yeah. So, yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, after Syndrome sort of ended, he kind of just lifted up the mantle and carried it on, and now you're just sort of giving back. So that's what it's all about.
Yeah, man.
Um, so I'm interested in kind of the intersection between your professional skimboarding career and then um, you being a business owner and being a shaper. So, um, like, what challenges did you face while transitioning from a pro skimboarder to a shaper, or I guess even more so in your case, kind of doing both at the same time?
Yeah. So that's a. It's hard to describe that one. There's not many other. I don't know many pro skimboarders that make their own boards. I mean, there are on the West Coast. I know who those guys are, and those are some of the guys that I really look up to, like Andy Chiavetta, uh, and Aaron Peluso. He was my favorite skimboarder growing up, just the way his style, and he would wrap waves. So, um, like I see that. But the East Coast side, there's, it, I kind of feel like sometimes I feel like I'm a lone horse, like I'm in a category kind of by myself that I understand because I'm looking at what it's like to be a professional rider standpoint and the business aspect of it, because I'm 37 now. I'm getting older, and I want to be on the back end side of skimboarding. I want to be at the contest, not just competing at the pro level. Like, yeah, I can still skim and hang with some people, but I, I'm I'm more about the back end now, building the boards and seeing my boards out there and seeing other people ride them and what they can do, getting feedback from them about boards, and then also the competitive aspect, just debates about judging, trying to understand the whole contest aspect of it because I mean, I want to go to the Olympics. I want skimboarding to go to the Olympics. I want,
Yes.
yeah, like if I can be a part of that, that would be sweet. Um, I know that I'm not going to get my chance at a gold, but if my boards are there, or if I'm a coach, or just hey, I know that guy, like I'm a part of it. Like I've skimmed for over 30 years. I want to see where it's going to go. Um, so that's kind of like I have my creative side to me, which really making the skimboards it's like art and a therapy for me also. The business part I'm definitely learning, and I'm just going slow with it, but I've been doing the contests for a long time, and hearing all the different conversations we've had over the years, I'm trying to understand it in a more mature way now, and hopefully I can be a helpful voice, in skimboarding. And then the real goal is if, I'm still skimming from the grave, basically. Like if my boards are still out here and I'm dead and gone and, I'm still getting barreled if my boards are. That's kind of the crazy way I
Yeah,
see
yeah.
it, but
You're in the green room
yeah,
still, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Sick. Yeah, there's so much there. I mean, the first thing jumps out at me is, I mean, definitely just pushing skimboard as far as they can go. I mean, this is something I've told a few friends now, but I guess the public will know soon. But my dream is for skimboarding to be in the Olympics, and I want to help put it there. And meeting someone else who's on board with that is
yeah.
good, and that's why just being more, in the media, putting more stuff out there, helping out even with the live stream with the Vic just this past weekend was a great experience for me. And it's almost kind of like a back door. Like a lot of people want to go, you know, get in the in crowd, like, but just by their pure athleticism and winning all the heats and becoming the best. But there's so many different ways you can help out a sport, and skimboarding, just like any other sport, needs all of the different people, right? It needs the shapers. It
Yep.
needs your local guys on the beats that are always there. It needs the pros. It needs people in the media, and so it's gonna take like-minded people, like ourselves, and
Hmm.
more of us to come together. And I definitely think we can get there.
Oh yeah, 100%,
Yeah,
100%, man.
yeah, yeah. Um,
That's
and
awesome to hear,
so,
Trey.
yeah, man. Um, so one of the things I'm curious about is just sort of like kind of honing in a little bit more on like the challenges, and you mentioned that syndrome skimboards kind of like went belly up, or I'm not sure exactly
He just kind of
why
got
it ended,
burned
but can you
out.
tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that? Yeah.
Yeah, he was a oceanic engineer, and so he had his day job, and he just I could tell he worked a ton. He'd go to his day job, and then I'd be at the shop in the afternoon, and then he'd come to the shop and work. And so he he had mentioned that he had got burnt out on it. There was never any bad feelings when everything just kind of fizzled out and kind of closed up. It wasn't just this like boom, it's done kind of day. Um, yeah, we still stay in contact, and he's hey, you got any questions? Let me know, and it's pretty cool. It's a really it's good to have that because he was my mentor. He still is. I have a ton of respect for Anton. Um, he showed me a whole different kind of love than I've ever seen. Him taking the time to teach me, and so I saw that, and how can I not give back when something was so freely given to me, you know.
Right.
So yeah.
So do you so speaking of like sharing the load and everything and not getting burnt out, or do you have any help now? Are you like seeking an apprentice, or
Uh,
how are you
yeah. So
functioning as a
right now, I have a day job also. I build boats for a boat company called Cape Horn Boats, and
mm,
they're right here out of Pensacola. And so I work my 40 hours a week, and then in the afternoons I build skimboards or on weekends and stuff like that. I definitely in the future am looking to apprentice someone, and when that person comes along, I'm gonna know. But right now, it's I'm still super small. I'm not trying to get too far ahead of myself. Um, especially on the financial side of it. Um, I'm in it for the long run. So there's no rush. I'm not trying to be like any other company. I just like to be like myself, and I hope everybody else likes what I'm doing for the sport. Also, you know.
yeah, totally, man. Um, so switching back to your skimboarding career a little bit, tell us a little bit about the like tell us how Volano went. I wasn't able to look at the stats or anything
Yeah.
before this, but tell us about that. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So Volano is a very special place to me. So that's where I learned how to build skimboards was in Volano, really Jacksonville, which is about 30 minutes north. But Volano, there's a group of local guys there that I really learned how to skim the East Coast with, and Jed Currington, Brad Evers, Russell Thomas, uh, Steve Polera, Kai Hayes, like all these hardcore local guys, Frank Hastings, Dave Scott, Tad Mask, Hank Snap, Mike Schlela, all those guys, love them all to death. We skimmed Volano for very many of years when the sand was still good. They had numerous hurricanes that really took a ton of sand off the beach. So it hasn't been properly breaking for the past couple years. It's just a flat beach right now. There's not a slope. But when there is slope and the sand comes back, it has one of the best wedge A-frame wraps on the East Coast that I've seen. I've been up and down the whole East Coast, and it's pretty warm. There's a lot of good skim up north, but it's cold. I'm a Florida boy, so I like warmer weather. Uh, but yeah, Volano, I did okay. It was flat beach. I don't like to do a lot of tech past my first heat, and then I lost to Yahir Valencia man on man heat second round, so I can't really hold my head. And that was kind of the reason why I was like, I'll do my last pro contest at Volano since I'm going to it, and it's a second home to me. All the brothers that I have over there. So I made that the last contest. It's so hard to say that because I've been skimming good lately, but I'm ready to be on that back end side, doing the business, helping judge, and just any single way that I can help and learn from, even if I'm not the guy for it. At least I know something about it.
Totally, yeah. So, what was the reason, apart from, Volano being, a big place where, you learn how to skim, you gain this, like, awesome group of, friends who also skim. What led to this point? Were you seeing maybe, past a few couple heats, the way the sport is now, you really, and this is something I was talking to Johnny Salta about, like, after a certain round, you really got to do a bunch of combos or you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit of why, like, what led to this decision
Yes.
exactly?
Yeah. Ultimately, and it's funny this is a good question. So I I got the man on man heat against Yahir at Volano, which a four-man heat feels completely different to me than a man-on-man heat. It's you kind of like feel
Mm,
like, oh well, I'll only have to beat, if this guy's winning, I only have to beat, I have to get second. Like, I can handle getting second. I don't know. It kind of takes a little bit of the pressure off there. Now, advancing through round after round, obviously you're getting more competitive. The tech game that this new generation has came up with, I'm not part of that generation. That's
Yeah,
that's
you are.
that's what made me say I if I skim at my best, I'm not doing a 540 shove it out to the wave, then doing a 540 shove it on the wave back up the beach. Like, that's not how I ever skimmed, and I consider myself more of a power wave skimmer, and I
Right,
love
like
that
Tim
type of
Fulton
riding.
sort of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, for sure. It especially John Joyce on the East Coast. He's
Mm.
got my favorite style out of everybody. Um, I'll throw some tech every once in a while, but I like throwing tech on the wave, and it just kind of comes natural to me. So, so yeah, that was
Yeah.
ultimately the decision that it was like, Yahir, he's so young and fast, and I just, even at my best, I know I'm not going to keep up with that, and I can still hold my own respectively. It's just time to move forward with life.
Right. I feel you. So, now that how long did you say you've been skimming since you were
7, since I was 7
seven?
years
7.
old.
Okay.
Yeah, so 30
Um,
years this year.
and
Competing
and
though,
then
I've been
yeah.
competing since I think I was 16 years old. I did my first contest.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah,
And then
21 years I've been competing.
wow. So in that amount of time, you've seen a lot of changes in the sport. So when did you start to see this techie style start happening, or what major changes in general in the style of skimboarding did you see along the way?
So, um, I grew up watching all the 10th Street Brothers videos.
Mm.
And so I would see, Jeff Gomez has another one of my favorite styles from Cali. Um, and he's definitely a wave rider skimmer. Uh, Now then, Brad Evers is from Volano. He would go to the West Coast. He's a little bit older than me, so he was part of like that first tech generation that I noticed anyway from the East Coast. And I think a lot of the guys in the 10th Street Brothers, it seems like they would give Brad a lot of credit for some tech tricks. So I kind of grew up with a lot of the Panama City guys that are from uh, my generation, like Lance Richards, uh, Corbin Dull, Derek Pryor. Um, who else was from over there? Sean Geyser. All those guys did a lot of tech. So competing in the same age division before we were pro, we that was what it was. It was kind of like we weren't doing 3 shoves out to the wave. Every once in a while we were, um, but it was more of a. It wasn't as aggressive of technical maneuvers. I guess aggressive is the wrong word. There wasn't as many technical maneuvers thrown on one wave. You see 2 to 3 tech tricks on one wave nowadays, whereas before it was all about getting that wave and then throwing the tech trick. Now it's throwing the tech trick before, during,
Mm-hmm.
and after. So that was kind of the
So
movement I
crazy.
saw. I loved watching Geo skim, just the vibe he would carry on the beach. He was such a mentor to me growing up when I would go out to Cali and just take me under his wing, show me how to ride the siders, tell me which were the good waves, which were the, don't go for that one. Um, so yeah, I've seen a lot of different stuff, and it makes me wonder like, where's it gonna go? It's still
Mm.
progressing.
Yeah, totally. Um, so we kind of talked about the style of progression. What about on the shaper aspect? What about the equipment and materials for skimboarders? How's that changed over time?
So yeah, materials have definitely, and technology is it's definitely change the way a board feels. I mean, I know what I build and what other companies, what it looks like and how their boards feel, because I try everything. And going from wooden boards to just even hand glassed boards, not even vacuum bagged. Um, the boards that weren't vacuum bagged tend to be heavier and not as stiff to me. Then when I ride a vacuum bag skimboard, I can feel a major difference in how light they are and just the pop in them, how stiff they are, how they react to the wave. And that'll only take you so far. Then you have to design the outline, and that'll only take you so far. Then you got to get that rocker matched with that outline. And what I love working with people that understand the aspects of the board. Like, hey, I want my rocker just like at this spot, the way, can you shift it back a quarter of an inch? Charlie Daly and me are working on a board right now, and he's my favorite to work with because he can draw me pencil sketches, and I get what he's talking about. And that's the kind of people I like to work with, is like when they understand all the different measurements and where I'm talking about on the board, then we can really go to work and get something really dialed in for somebody. So pay attention, people. Like, learn your skimboard. That way you can give your shaper better feedback and get what you want. So it's up to the rider a lot of times too,
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. The materials have changed, like all the different techniques, and it's interesting when you describe it, because it's just like there's even just looking at one aspect, there's a limit to how much performance you can get out of it, and then you have to move on to the next.
Yes.
And then you can max that, and then move on to the next, and then you kind of have all this cluster of different elements you bring together to make a really good board.
Yeah, and then we can make a really good board, but the conditions not suit that style of board. That's why I like to have multiple shapes, just for that reason, So
yeah. So totally. So so what's in your quiver right now? You said 2 to 3 boards. I kind of carry usually 2 myself, but what do you usually carry with you? Like, what kind of, you don't have them all with you, but
so
tell us a little bit about them. Yeah.
This is the main shape that I prefer. It's 52 3/4 inches long by 21 inches wide with a forward midpoint. I make the same shape in a fishtail, not quite not a super wide fishtail, and it's not super narrow. It's a happy medium between other fishes that y'all have seen. So yeah, I ride a round pintail. Also ride a normal midpoint board that's just basically like a standard round tail flat rocker, no tail rocker in it. Actually, all 3 round tails. Not really a fish guy. I do like a fish on smaller waves if I'm gonna skim smaller waves, but on the bigger stuff, it's just I like a round pin. That's what I've always kind of rode. So yeah, it's 3 round pins. One of the round pins that I ride is it has the tail rocker in it, and so I keep that board a little shorter. It's not an egg shape. It's more just like your traditional board. It's not like a pro shape with a more narrow nose. It's pretty similar to what's a good shape to describe it off of? Probably an XL hybrid, but I put tail rocker
I have
in
one
it.
of those.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I put a little more tail rocker than normal in it, but man, it really has some serious pop when I hit waves with it. Like, wouldn't have thought that, but yeah, it makes sense to me now that I felt it. So I'll kind of mix up, like, in my session, if I see a wave that's, I like going for the waves that are farther out, the bigger wave of the set. So I need more surface area to get farther out on 90% of my waves. So that's what I'm choosing this board for, is just that distance to go. That narrow tail helps me to, once I get into it, I can surf it. If I'm going to throw some tech, if I see a wave I want to do an air on, or or a a backside air, a front side air, shove it. I like to have that tail rocker in it, and I'll just I stick them all. I stick all the boards in the sand next to me and just kind of swap through them depending on what shape wave is coming in, and
Right.
so yeah, that's if it's really on the beach and heavy and perfect, I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna ride a traditional shape board, flat, no tail rocker, no forward midpoint. I want just a normal 52 inch. That's me, 52 inch by 20 wide. You know,
Sick. Okay. Cool. Um, so what advice would you have for skimboarders, especially like the young groms who are, looking at you, looking at some of the older riders and saying like, yeah, I want to be a pro, and I think I have what it takes, but they're just a grom. Well, what advice would you give them?
I would tell them to follow your own path. You know, it's if you feel like you want to compete and you have the competitive nature, go after the contest and you know find what works for you. If you're driven to more hunting for waves, which is a passion of mine, I like to step off the path and go where nobody's at, and it's a hit or miss sometimes, but when I hit, it's like gold. That's I live for those kind of days. So if y'all are wanting to search for waves, study science of the ocean. Study how swells work. Learn what your tides do. Learn what sand is. Just all those aspects. I love that part of skimming. That's that's a huge part of it to me. Um, yeah, the advice I'd have is just go for what you want to do, not what other people want you to do. And ask yourself those questions. Hey, is this what I love doing, or am I just doing this because I think I'm supposed to? Um, you know, so that's kind of where I got with the competitive side because I love competing, but I love competing in quality conditions. It just doesn't. Skimming is such a hard sport to narrow down because sand shifts so much. It's so tide dependent on the East Coast, and it's just really tough sometimes. So stick with it. There's contests where it's going to be rainy and windy, but if you want to win, you got to skim good in every condition. So
Right.
yeah.
So same question, but for aspiring shapers. So if a kid wants to go the shaper route, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, uh, be prepared to fail over and over again and learn from your failures. Every time I fail, I really am not failing. I'm learning from that mistake. I have to embrace mistakes as a almost like a win. It's like, well, I made this mistake, but what can I learn out of it? What not to do, or some of my some of the techniques I've learned have been on accident, like straight up, just like, oh, I screwed that board up, and oh wait, what did I just do? And then think about it and not just throw my hands up and say, oh, this board's no good. Like there's always something to learn from that. So don't let things get you down when you mess boards up, make a mistake, cut it wrong, mix the resin wrong, something like that. Learn from it. Learn what you did wrong and what not to do next time. And don't get hung up on that emotion. Move forward.
So good, really good stuff, man. Um, Looking back at your lifetime thus far, of course, there's a lot of things that happen in the future, but that will happen. What what moments are you most proud of in the skimboard in your skimboarding history?
Hmm. Man, that's a oh, there's several.
Maybe give me 1 to 3.
Yeah. Okay. So, um, one of my proudest is probably just living in Sanunga for 6 months, maybe a little more than that.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw your video. I don't know if
I
maybe we
have a,
can play a clip, but
yeah,
that that's so rad. I didn't know you were there for 6 months.
yeah,
I just saw your part, and then I
yeah,
was just, oh, this is rad. I didn't know you stayed there
yeah,
for so long.
yeah. I have
That's
a
so cool.
really that place has a special heart to me, as with many others. But the place is magical. It is littered with skim everywhere. The people are just as good as the waves. Um, it that's one of my favorite aspects. I learned so much there, and still have so many friends from down there that are incredible people. Iran Santos, I love you, man. Um, but yeah, uh, another one is probably I won the Volano contest in the men's division, so that's when I went pro. Was after that contest, so that was a major deal to me. I think I was 19 years old when I did that, and
Wow. Yeah.
yes, I did that, and I still have that trophy. Um, there's so many other ones to name, and then obviously learning how to shape skimboards from Anton. That was forever grateful there. Forever grateful to learn that craft and then take it on with me and build my own art. So
Wow, so good. Um, yeah, man, you've had a lot of good things. What's your favorite spot in the world? What's your favorite skim spot in the world?
uh, my favorite spot, I have too many to name, um, but my favorite thing is when I find a spot and I search all of the elements about what makes that spot click, and not just
Mm-hmm.
like be kind of good, but I'm talking when it turns world class, and then being able to predict that. Like, I love being able to predict when I think a spot is going to be good, and then scoring on it. It's the ultimate search to me.
Mm.
You know, but with
Like
that,
forecasting,
yeah,
yeah.
it's a double edge. Like yesterday, I drove 2 hours to a spot, got completely skunked. The
Yeah.
the day before that, I went to
Like,
another spot, completely scored at a dead low tide. Like, didn't think it would really be that good, but it probably could. And yeah, I ended up scoring. Like, it was for the golf. It was about as good as the golf gets. Um, so I love it when that happens. I do a lot of searching for waves by myself. It's hard to link up with people that can just kind of take a strike mission, leave spur of the moment, or it's a grind traveling and getting to a place not knowing if it's going to be good. Like, you got to be able to handle failure, losing
right.
it, not finding that wave. Um, but that's just part of it. And when I score, man, does that score feel good, you know?
How long are you tracking a spot and the different conditions that are in it before you actually make the move to drive there or travel there?
So I've got a couple places. Most of these spots are, I've been looking at them so long that when a storm or a swell direction pops up, I put a couple of the pieces of the puzzle in my formula, and if everything checks off, the only thing that I'm worried about is if the sand is how it needs to be. Um, so I pay attention to a lot of the direction of swells, winds, um, but the sand is the main thing on the Gulf, because our sand doesn't move as much as like y'all sand on the West Coast. Y'all sand moves crazy. What our sand does is when it moves, it stays a certain shape for a long period of time. So you have to have a a major storm or dredging or something has to take place for that sandbar to change. But that's where there's the benefit also is when the sand gets good, it'll stay good for a really long time too. So you go through, like Volano right now is a perfect example. It's been a few years that it has not worked like it worked when, me and all those guys I named skim there. But it will. When that sand comes back, it'll do the right thing and shape up. It's just been years since it has. And yeah, I hope it's sooner than later because I'm not getting any younger.
Yeah. I feel you. Yeah, no, you remind me of one of my buddies. He's like obsessed with forecasting stuff.
Yeah.
He was actually on the previous podcast. So, um, one of the other questions I had was, how has skimboarding and shaping affected your life personally outside of the world of skimming, right? So, like, what lessons did you take away that molded you as a person?
Yeah. Um, how to treat people off of the beach. It's not just something about, it taught me how to share with people, how to, want to see someone else do good besides myself. I want to see somebody else catch a good wave. I want to see my friend, who's struggling catching this wave. I want to see them overcome that boundary. And so encouragement, I really learned encouragement from skimming and all of us just pushing each other, not being selfish about waves. Yeah, there's that competitive drive that everybody likes, but in the end of the day, like, we're all wanting each other to catch a better wave, do better. And so I've kind of like taken that off the beach with me and just, adapted it to life. I love teaching people how to do something. If I see somebody struggling, learning how to do something, I'll naturally want to help them. And I think skimming is really what put that part of me there.
Yeah, that's so interesting. That's one of the things too that I learned when I was competing in the Vic a couple of years ago. I remember I was just getting worked, and like after the heat, Steve Glade, like Power Glade on Instagram, was just like, just like, keep doing it, man, keep trying, like,
Yeah.
and that just like that little moment, like, I don't know, it just like kept me motivated, and I always remember that. And it's one of the themes that I found with a lot of skimboarders is just encouragement, from the Groms all the way down, all the way up to, it doesn't really matter how old you are, but we all want each other to do well. Of course, there's that competitive side at the end of, in the competition, but, you know, outside of the water, it kind of helps you think about others. So
Yeah,
yeah,
man.
totally agree with that, man.
Yeah.
Um, so tell us what's next for Astin Astin Skimboards.
Yeah.
Do you have any upcoming projects or innovations with the technology you'd like to tease?
Yeah, so I'm about to release my catalog and a new logo. I'm still working on the website, so that's just kind of part of the process. But in that catalog, you'll be able to see all the shapes I've designed. You'll be able to read about them, all the different glassings you can order. We'll have merch and some other stuff coming up, but the main thing people to look for is my catalog being released, and that's everything I offer that they can buy. And yeah, I'll be trying to get some boards in shops once that's out. Right now I'm doing mostly a lot of custom orders in local surf shops in my area. So just growing, learning from the contest aspect, but then also incorporating the travel and searching for waves in different places into the whole branding.
Sick.
Yeah.
So, do you have an idea of when that catalog will be released?
Yeah, as soon as I pick up the pace a little bit. Yeah, it's
Right,
it's pretty
yeah.
close to being done. I'm gonna get with my guy here soon. I've had a bunch of stuff going on lately, finishing up the contest, summer, hurricanes, chasing swell. So
Mm-hmm.
yes, it should be in the next 2 weeks. That comes out no longer than a month. We're pretty much right there at the end of it though. So y'all keep an eye out for that catalog. It's got some cool pictures, colors, and boards in it.
Sick. Um, so we talked a little bit about like, um, after you're gone, it would be rad if your boards are still out there getting barreled, and you can be barreled along with it. So I'm wondering what does like legacy like mean to you when what legacy do you hope to leave in the world of skimboarding?
Yeah, uh, man, I really hope that people can see that anybody can do what I'm doing. I'm building my own boards, competing, skimming. You know, I've failed so many times to get to this point that it's not even funny, and I just keep trying. I don't let my emotions just hold me down from the failures because I'm getting successes out of it. So I just hope kids want to still ride my boards, or even adapt, searching for waves, because honestly the majority of the world is undiscovered for skim because of how fickle it is, and I would just love to see kids take that aspect all across the globe and just let's find the skim, you guys. Like we can all link up with this technology, and who knows where our Olympic venue could be. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's like
yeah,
venues, right?
venues, yeah,
Every 4 years,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, um,
um,
yeah,
so yeah, man. I know we're kind of reaching the top of the hour,
yeah.
about to kick me out, but I'm kind of just I'm curious, like, what is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience? Like, do you have any other message or any other thing that you wanted to talk about that we didn't already discuss?
Just keep pushing, you guys. Like, follow Skim Steezy. He has got a great idea of what is going on. I've seen him at numerous contests, putting in the work. Um, just like I have, and so many other people out there are just, they're, it's all for the sport and riding waves, seeing where skimming can go. I really want to see more spots in the world discovered that are like Sanunga and the Laguna that has multiple siders within a mile of it. I want to find the 7 mile miracle of skimboarding. Where is that North Shore? And I still think that there's plenty of those places out there.
Sick. Yeah. So what like how can people find you on the internet? I know you're on Instagram, and you have a website coming, but just tell the audience, how can they can connect with you.
Yeah, right now it's just Instagram that I'm on. Message me on there to get orders in, custom orders. That's what I love doing, is building custom boards, tailored specifically per individual, whether they're 4 years old or 50 years old. It doesn't matter to me. But on Instagram right now, soon I will be having the website astinskimboards.com drop. The catalog will be there, as well as some bio and tools to look for waves also. So so right now it's just Instagram, you guys, and I will be growing in the near future.
Sick. All right, cool. And so last question, if you had to sum up your skimboarding journey in one word, what would it be and why?
Hmm. It's grateful, grateful for sure.
Grateful.
Um,
I love that.
I I, I mentioned that I took, somewhere between 6 and 8 years off. I don't skim like I used to. I still skimmed in those years, uh, but skimming has always been there for me. Skimming has, on my worst day, what do I want to do? I want to go skim. It helps me just get all my stress out. Uh, on my best day, which on my best day, the skim's firing, and of course, I want to go skim. So it's there for me no matter what. If I'm by the coastline or by a mud puddle or river or a lake, anything, I can go run, get stress out of my body, be healthy by exercising and then experiencing it with other people and then showing them, hey, this is a cool thing. You want to try it out? And if they like it, that's what's really cool.
Awesome, man.
But
Yeah.
yeah.
Grateful. That's definitely a good word. And something I have for you as well. I'm grateful for you to be willing to come on this podcast with me and talk to the audience. And, hopefully we can encourage more skimboarders, more future shapers for skimboarding to come out.
Yeah, for sure, Trey, for sure. This has been fun, man. Thank you.